You are now listening to The Unwavering, the movement dedicated to educating and empowering the brave men and women who have or are still serving our great nation. What's up, everyone? This is Kevin with another episode of The Unwavering. Before we begin, as always, a huge thank you to the military community, those of you continuing to serve on active duty, those of you who are in the reserves, as well as you veterans who have already served previously. Today's episode is extremely important, and that's because, as everyone knows, due to the coronavirus, there's a lot of changes that are being implemented. But today, we're going to be talking to a good friend of mine who I've previously had on the show. That's my good buddy, Jonathan Lee from militarymoneymatters.org. And we'll go ahead and talk about how the stimulus package is affecting service members, what you can do with that money, and how to make the most of this payment. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over to Jonathan and let him introduce himself.
Hey, Kevin, appreciate the intro. Again, it's Jonathan Lee. I am the primary author for militarymoneymatters.org. It's a website designed to spread financial literacy in the military and help you get the benefits that you deserve. I hope you caught our last episode. We talked about the 2020 changes to the VA loan. It was a pleasure working with you then, Kevin, and it's a pleasure working with you again today. And really excited to get into some of the content that we're going to discuss today.
It's always a pleasure having you on here, and we're excited to continue this partnership and continue to talk to you as well as some of your friends who are a little bit more financially savvy than us. So again, huge thank you for you. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Obviously, this is an unprecedented time. We didn't expect anything like this, but the truth is it's here. Due to the coronavirus, there's a lot of things that are being affected, people's health, people's mental well-being, and also their ability to put money and put food on the table for their families. That's a huge thing. Before anything else, before you have money to purchase luxuries and things like that, you have to take care of your family. So can we talk about the economic impact that COVID-19 or the coronavirus is having on the U.S.?
Yeah, sure thing. So we'll discuss some of those financial repercussions of COVID-19 here in a bit, but everyone's already aware bars and restaurants are closing. A lot of people are working from home right now, and a lot of people are glued to the television looking at news reports about what this is actually doing to the country, but also to the economy. So what we've seen is a few unprecedented moves by the federal government recently as the country reacts to this situation. So, a few of those big economic impacts, one of them is going to be jobless claims. I know a report came out today. It was not pretty. Another 6.6 million people filed for unemployment or they claimed to be jobless. April 3rd, there were 6.6 million people as well. And there were 3 million people on March 27th. So that's a lot of people that are currently without jobs. Right now, it's just not a good time, given that this is more or less federally mandated because we are closing down restaurants and bars, and that is what is causing people to lose these jobs. And this, of course, is coming after a lot of economic growth. We had near record low unemployment at 3.5% in February. So definitely different economic times. Additionally, we're seeing supply chains being severely disrupted. Global travel isn't really occurring. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed airlines, if you've flown recently, are basically empty. And there's a chance that cruise ships and airlines are going to be in dire financial condition here in the near future. And economists predict anywhere from 13 to 30% unemployment over the coming months as this crisis develops. So with a crisis of this magnitude, naturally, you're going to get some form of government intervention to prevent the economy from collapsing.
Right. Before we go forward, I just want to make a quick statement, and that is today's episode, we are not trying to instill fear. At the same time, we're not trying to downplay the severity of what's going on. What we want to discuss is the fact that, as Jonathan said, we recently were seeing some of the highest records in stocks, in the US economy, and different markets. And almost overnight, it's done the complete opposite. So today's episode, more than anything, is just to teach you guys how to be prepared and how to make financially sound decisions during chaotic times. remaining cool and calm under pressure, mitigating as much risk as possible, and then making an informed decision. You mentioned, Jonathan, that at a certain point, the government has to intervene. Obviously, we have reached that point. How does that affect us as citizens?
So the government basically has two ways that they can bolster the economy. One way is monetary policy, and the other way is fiscal policy. So monetary policy is basically how our central bank, which is the Federal Reserve, governs the supply of money to influence output, employment, and prices. They have a dual mandate to basically try to optimize unemployment and inflation. So the Federal Reserve has announced quantitative easing, and they've reduced interest rates as a response to this pandemic. So basically, what this means is they've made it easier for businesses to borrow money, and they've infused a large amount of capital into the economy. For everyday people, how that's going to impact you as the consumer, interest rates are basically at record lows right now, and they'll probably be like that for quite some time. So today might actually be a good time if you're looking to refinance something. Maybe it's your mortgage, maybe you're trying to consolidate some debt or refinance your student loans. With rates this low, it might be worth considering doing that. One particular aspect you can look at as an active duty service member or a veteran is you can refinance your VA loan through a program called the Interest Rate Reduction Refinance Loan, the IRRL. And essentially, what that's going to do is allow you to get a lower rate. So if your rate is currently in the fours or fives, I would recommend you talk to a mortgage broker. A lot of people are getting mortgage rates in the twos and threes right now. Now, from a fiscal policy standpoint, a lot of you have probably seen on the news the government passed a $2.2 trillion stimulus package. So, $250 billion of that's going to go directly towards economic impact payments, and $250 billion is going to be used to bolster unemployment insurance. That's going to be an additional $600 a week for unemployment insurance. Additionally, a couple other programs such as forbearance and student loan halts are in play. I'm not particularly familiar with those, but if those apply to you, I would recommend looking into them.
Thank you for mentioning those things. Before we get to how it is affecting us and the stimulus checks that some Americans will be receiving, I would like to touch on what you mentioned earlier, and that is the fact that for everyone who has previously purchased a home or taken out the VA home loan to purchase a home, and they purchased at a rate of 4 or 5%, this is a good time for them to maybe refinance, as you mentioned. Obviously, talk to your mortgage company, talk to those around you who you trust when it comes to realty and investing in the real estate market. But if that applies to you, do your research, make some phone calls. But that's what we want to do. We want to share things that are actually going to help you and your family. And with something as large as a mortgage, that has the potential to save you guys thousands and thousands of dollars over the duration of that loan. So, just a thing for you guys to think about. Touching on the second thing that you mentioned, the stimulus package, obviously there's going to be a lot of implications. But if this money that you receive from the federal government as part of the stimulus package, if you can afford to invest that money, now is the time to do so. If you look at different people who are buying and selling stocks right now, it's the wealthy. You look at the Warren Buffetts, you look at the Jeff Bezos, these guys, if you follow their portfolios, you can see that they are investing hundreds of millions of dollars right now while the market is near its lowest levels. So that's what I always do. When I make a decision, I take everything that's around me. I look at key players in the game, I look at the decisions that they're making, and I see, do they have a trend of making successful decisions? I like to follow those things. So I'll hand it over to you, Jonathan, so you can explain what the stimulus package actually looks like.
Kevin, I'm glad you brought that up. Warren Buffett actually says, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. So, with the market off 33% like it was a few weeks ago, it's a great buying opportunity. It's still down from the highs of February. In terms of the stimulus package, what we're looking at for individuals getting the economic impact payments, the maximum is going to be $1,200 for people that file taxes individually and $2,400 for joint filers, and a maximum of $500 per kid if that kid was born in 2019 or earlier and they're still your dependent. If you made $75,000 adjusted gross income on your last tax return, you should get the full payment. Payments are going to begin to decline at $75,000 by 5% per $1,000. If you file together and you both combined make $198,000, you will get $0. And this is going to be based on your last tax return. So you need to have one on file from 2018 or 2019. And if you filed your 2019 taxes, it'll be based on those, which, if you're not aware, those are due on 15 July now instead of April 15th. The federal government pushed the date back.
Yes, they ended up pushing it, which for some of you that may be beneficial. What Jonathan just mentioned is extremely important for you guys who are anticipating this paycheck. Now, I do want to say a few things in regards to these checks. We did mention that it is based off your 2018 or 2019 taxes that you filed. So, what that means is if, let's say, during the year of 2018, you were single and made less than $75,000, you may not want to file for your taxes in 2019 if you made over that amount, because once they see that you made over that cap, then you're no longer going to be eligible. And it's the same thing for couples who are filing jointly for 150,000 to 198,000, as he said. So just be smart about the decisions that you guys make. We're not telling you not to file your taxes, but what we're saying is if it is beneficial for you to wait a month to file them, then maybe that's something you want to look at. But again, talk to your tax representative and they'll be able to educate you more. But just one of those things for you guys to think about. Another thing that's been in the news is the fact that, to be completely honest, some people are not going to receive these checks. Some people that do need these checks, it's never going to get to them. And that could be for a few reasons. That could be one, because they never have filed for taxes, which already in itself is an issue. They are not registered US citizens. So there's different things and different communities that are going to be impacted differently. But when we speak about the military community, as long as you're filing your taxes, you should be eligible. And we'll get to that in a second. The other thing I want to mention when it comes to this stimulus package is if you have filed your taxes previously and received direct deposit, then it's expected for you guys to receive your checks in about 2 weeks from the time that the deal was made. And for you guys who do file for your taxes but have never done direct deposit, then it can take you up to 20 weeks to receive that stimulus check. So look at the difference. Direct deposit, you can receive a check. At least what we're hearing is you can receive a check within 2 weeks. But if you don't do direct deposit, you may have to wait up to 20 weeks. By then, maybe it'll be too late for that money to help you pay bills. So just again, moving forward, we want to educate you guys and share information that is going to benefit you and your families. I'll hand it back to you, Jonathan, and let you explain how military members are eligible and how it's going to impact them.
I'm glad you brought up the point of those checks being delayed. One thing you can do is go to www.irs.gov/coronavirus, and there will eventually be a portal so that you can get your information in there and you won't have to wait on a check. But as far as being in the military, you are going to be eligible for this stimulus package. If you don't have the military pay app from military.com, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I find it very useful. I recommend you get that because it gives you what your income is monthly and it includes all your special pays. So if you made less than 62.50 a month, that's going to be your base pay and special pay. You're eligible for the full $1,200. And if you make above 82.50 a month is where you start getting into that $0 payment. You're no longer eligible. Generally for active duty, that's going to be everyone below E8 or O3 with fewer than 8 years of service. And then you're not going to get anything if you're an O5 with 14 years of service or if you're higher rank than that. I'd recommend you take a look at your tax returns from last year before calculating your impact payment.
You mentioned a few good things for all of our military listeners. As Jonathan mentioned, this is going to be based off of your monthly base and special pay. So this will not take things into account such as BAH, the additional money you receive for housing. That's not going to be tied into this. The other thing, and I want to thank you for putting the work in and giving us exact ranks and years of service so people know who this should apply to. As he mentioned, if you are an E8, so an enlisted member level 8, or an officer level 3, so an O3, with fewer than 8 years of service, then you should be eligible. But if you are above those ranks, or if you are an O5 with 14 years of service, then you will not be eligible. Hopefully that helps break it down for you guys, just in case you have not received the word from your command as to who it applies to. Now you know. Please help spread the word, help educate others. So, Jonathan, we kind of talked about who this affects, what the package looks like. Now, can we discuss how do people receive that money?
So, for the most part, the IRS has said that you don't really need to do anything to get paid. It's just going to be a direct deposit based on whatever your direct deposit was from your last tax return. And again, as you said earlier, payments should start in the next few weeks. So, for the latest information, take a look at www.irs.gov/coronavirus. It gives you a lot of details and it's the most official information that you will get. Additionally, if your direct deposit is changed or it's not on file, like I said earlier, there will be a website available. So check that website often, and they will post that once it's available so that you can input your most recent direct deposit information.
Yeah, I think that's going to be something that affects a lot of people. So, hopefully, they do get the system up and running. As soon as they do, we will make sure to share it both on the Unwavering as well as Military Money Matters so you guys can be in tune with the latest information. Now is what I believe to be the best part of this segment, and that is what options do we have when it comes to that money? As I mentioned earlier, if you have to use this money to pay your mortgage, if you have to use it to pay utilities, put food on the table, there's no question. That's exactly what the money's for. That's exactly how it should be used. But let's say you are in a good place and this is additional money that you either want to put into savings or invest it. What are some other things that people could do with this money?
Again, Kevin, like you said, it is intended for struggling households. But if you're in a good position, it's actually really helpful. A couple of ways that you could productively use this money. First, I would recommend you pay off high interest debt. Of course, we just talked about the lower interest rates right now. So, would recommend you reconsolidate first with lower rates and then pay off your higher interest debt. Probably going to be credit cards, honestly. So, that'll save you some money in the long run. Second, a lot of people were really taken off guard by this. People were living paycheck to paycheck. They didn't have an emergency fund. So, one of the biggest lessons learned, I think, from this pandemic is the importance of having that emergency fund. So, you're not caught blindsided next time some black swan type event occurs and you don't have money for rent or utilities or something like that. So, if you don't have an emergency fund already, I would recommend you put it into an emergency fund. Lastly, I know you mentioned it earlier in the show, is investing it. So if you have an emergency fund already, it's not a bad idea to invest at all. The market was actually down up to 33% from recent highs in the last few months. So it's a good time to buy. Again, like the Buffett quote I said earlier, buying when other people are fearful. If you're not sure what to invest in, take a look at the Vanguard Fund S&P 500 index funds. They're pretty good broad market funds that will mimic the market and they will follow the recovery up. You'll get basically market returns. If you're a little bit more aggressive, take a look at transportation ETFs or some small cap funds if you're trying to look at a battered industry. So transportation might be a good look if you're trying to purchase something like that. But overall, those are my top three recommendations for what to do with the $1,200 stimulus money.
Thank you for sharing those things. And again, we just want to do the best that we can to educate you guys. We want you guys to know that there is help out there. There are people that you can talk to. If you cannot make payments on your mortgage, go ahead and call your loan companies. A lot of them right now are very understanding of the fact that people may not be able to make those payments, but they won't stop charging you until you make that phone call. You may be on the phone for 3 hours, for 4 hours, just trying to get a hold of someone. But if that's what it takes for you to get some leniency and tell them, hey, I'm going to be short this month, but I can pay it next month, maybe that's something that you have to do. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today. Jonathan, as always, thank you so much for coming on board. We absolutely look forward to having you on again in the future.
No, I appreciate it. It was a good time, man.
Thanks for listening to The Unwavering. Please rate and comment on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star and a great comment, and we may just read it on a future episode. Also, follow us on social platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check back with us next week.